The Comic Binge presents a subseries dedicated to one of the most divisive and imaginative mainstream comic book runs ever created with an iconic character. This is Knights Never Die, Grant Morrison's Batman, issue by issue. Tonight we continue with Act 1 of our journey, Knight versus Glove. We also continue a demonic detour into the return of Ra's al Ghul. And that was supposed to fade out, and it did not. Hey everybody, welcome back to Knights Never Die here on the Comic Binge. I am your co-host, Chris Clow, and tonight we return to the middle of a very divisive crossover event, roping in all the Batman titles of this time, and this is very late 2007. And that story is called The Resurrection of Ra's al Ghul. If you'll recall, the last time we got together for K&D was for a prelude issue to the whole event. And now the next issue of Batman, as written by Grant Morrison, drops us in the middle of the story in part 4. And my venerable co-host, partner in crime fighting, Mr. Javi Trujillo, has graciously put this very, very quick recap of the first few parts of the event on the page as written and drawn by comic book writer and artist extraordinaire Chris Burnham, to catch up readers who are following the run in the Batman by Grant Morrison Omnibus, Volume 1. They took a more efficient approach to get back to explaining this part of the story. And of course, we are also joined by Comic Binge founding father, Paul Herman. Gentlemen, how you guys doing?
Co-founding.
Yeah. Potato. How you guys doing?
Good, man. Happy birthday to Eric Porter in the chat.
Hey,
happy birthday.
That's awesome. Well, thank you for spending it with us, man. That's I'm flattered, and I'm sure these guys are flattered too. And Andre, yes, we said omnibus. I'm a fan of the omnibus format, and Javi's a fan of the omnibus format. Someone else on our panel, not so much a fan of the omnibus format, but as I was urged recently, if you have listened to a recent episode of the Batman Book Club, where Mr. Ryan Lauer graciously had me on as a guest, Paul is a fan of the absolute format. I stand corrected, even though I do recall him complaining about the size and weight of absolute editions in the past.
I think you honestly, and being in all seriousness, Chris, I think you were definitely misremembering, because I think I was just, if I remember correctly, I think it maybe a long time ago I was nervous about it, and it wasn't until before I even had our daughter, me and Morgan, our daughter, I got the Watchmen, oh my God, absolute. And it changed me. It made me go
in about 9 months. You'll have your chance to get the reprint of Absolute Crisis on Infinite Earths. And,
oh God, that is a day one purchase. I'm going to be like ready to go on that one. That's going to be a must.
Change your life all over again. That's my prediction.
And you talked about, and which, by the way, if you haven't already, there's a couple things I want to get to really quick. Just for house cleaning stuff. First of all, go check out Chris on the Batman Book Club podcast. It is so good. They break down their favorite Batman absolutes. It's a great listen. I love Lauer. He's one of my favorite people. He's a cutie patootie. And I absolutely love that episode. It's the cutest guy in the world, Ryan, with my best friend Chris. It's a guaranteed good time talking about absolute comic books. Last thing I want to say is, if you're new watching this or you're curious what the hell this is, we have a playlist. You can go back, watch older episodes. We got tons of playlists. I'm going to try to pimp out the playlist as much as possible. We have a ton of content that we've done on here. So Go check out our playlist if you haven't already. There's tons of content on there for you. If you like anything comic related, whether it be mega artsy, superhero, spider, whatever, we cover it. It's on there. So anyway, I just wanted
the
go on there.
playlists are well curated. And there is a complete Knights Never Die playlist. So if you are deciding to jump into the Grant Morrison Batman run and you want to go issue by issue like we're doing, you definitely have the chance to catch up with our journey as we go through all of these stories. This is a little bit of a pain point, at least for me, in the run. Dude, it's through no fault of Grant Morrison's. This is just so we're diving into Batman Volume 1, 671. Javi, before we actually begin this program, is there anything you want to set the table for, just in terms of your world, before I lay everything all out? Because I got a lot of stuff to say to catch people up.
It's been a minute since I've read this, and we'll get into my thoughts in a minute about it. But I would say I felt maybe ambivalent towards it afterwards, and I definitely have more concrete feelings about it now, having reread the whole trade that's available on DC Universe Infinite. But seeing this cover, and we had the recap, and they point out the suit of sorrows that Batman dons in the issue we're going to read, and that sparked a memory because this is in the greater DCU. They are counting down towards Final Crisis, how to get my crises in a row. And at the time, DC was just killing it with their house ads and teasing things and getting people to speculate of what was going to happen. And the first teaser they dropped was this one here. And you kind of had to guess, and people were going just crazy trying to figure out stuff. And it's like, obviously you've got Ted Kord with a bullet in his head. Maxwell Lord, his head is twisted back. Wonder Woman's consoling Superman. Mary Marvel's been eclipsed. And people were reading into like body language of how Ollie and Dinah aren't looking at each other, who's got their feet on the ground, who doesn't. And then we have this Batman image of him with the sword and like the armor, which is where we're going to pick up here. And then further down the road, we're going to see Red Robin, which is not Dick Grayson from Kingdom Come, but that's for another episode that we're going to talk about. But as it says, so begins the end. This is the DC Universe in 2007, and they put out, I think, 2 more of these, and then they just had some other house ads as well for Countdown. But do you yeah, I mean,
no, Andres, no.
Morrison.
Stop buying omnibuses.
No,
I mean, I'm waiting for that Tom King omnibus to drop next week, so Tuesday. I can put it in order with that and Batman Year 3, which came out this week, deluxe edition. It took 5 years from me begging for it on the Batman Book Club for it to become a reality. So go buy Batman Year 3 deluxe edition, and then Tom King's Batman. So, Chris, what were your thoughts on this? Do you remember this house ad?
Oh yeah, I mean, this is in the middle of, this is very early on in my time as a retailer. The Resurrection of Ra's al Ghul was coming out when I was just a few months into the job, and this, it looked, if memory serves, this is Phil Jimenez that drew this teaser image, and
I believe
people
you're correct.
were over analyzing this to hell and back. I mean, obviously it does. We know with hindsight now that it does set up elements of Final Crisis, not just the main series, and some ultimately major players with Big Bart and Mr. Miracle there, but Ion and Donna Troy would become pretty major characters, I believe, in Countdown to Final Crisis. The reverberations out of Infinite Crisis with Ted Kord, Vic Sage not looking too good, which is kind of an allusion to his
Cancer,
ultimate fate in 52, yeah, which we read on the show. And then of course, yeah, with the Red Robin costume and the Suit of Sorrows and a Flash. We weren't sure which Flash. So there were a lot of like fun mysteries to unpack here.
May I please ask a question? Can I
Sure.
request something here?
Okay.
For a side note, can we do a side episode of reading like the first like while of Red Robin when we get to the Return of Bruce Wayne or Bruce Wayne's death or whatever? Batman
Yeah,
Reborn.
I think that might be doable when we get to Batman Reborn. Not
Yeah.
issue by issue, but if we want
Well,
to
no. Yeah.
check out like the first
Yeah.
arc. And
Because
I
I
wouldn't
think
mind revisiting it.
yeah, because I almost feel like it'd be cool to revisit that, the Birds of Prey, Gotham City Sirens, whatever. Like, like the first arc of that, like because
maybe we could do an episode of just like the first arcs of Batman Reborn that are not.
Yeah, that rips because I'll be honest, that helped me get back. That helped me discover Grant Morrison's Batman, which we'll get to that at one point. Yeah. So it was that whole because that was a jumping on point, right? So
totally.
Red Robin represent, and I think the Red Robin book. I know a lot of people are. I'm not alone. Really love that book.
No, I loved it. I thought it was great.
Yeah. Well, who's the writer again? It's
Chris Yost.
Craig. Yeah, Chris. Dude, Yost, man. Like Ragnarok, Red Robin. I mean,
although the only thing that I'll say is that like the impetus for the Red Robin series was ostensibly for Tim to he still had the suspicion that Bruce was alive and he's investigating that. Spoiler alert for a nearly 20-year-old book. But the only actual like Red Robin addressing the root cause of Bruce's disappearance was in like 2 pages of Jeff Johns' Adventure Comics, weirdly enough. So I like the Red Robin series too, but it seemed weird to me that Johns was the only one to touch that outside of the actual main Red Robin series. But might be fun to talk about. By the time we get on the other side of RIP, this group is going to have a more dedicated conversation about what exactly to tackle that is not specifically in the run, but that might color the run a little bit. So we'll have that conversation off mic because it will be in depth.
Yeah, for sure. It'll be, and we got a ways out too, but just
it's like this is like a year away at the pace we're going here. So maybe we should hit the gas a little bit more.
Fair.
So today we're going to be diving into Batman Volume 1, number 671, released on November 28th in 2007 with a cover date of January 2008. The book has now been pretty well on track by this point on the scheduling front, and that continues here. It was, of course, written by Grant Morrison, and this marks the second issue of penciler Tony Daniel as the ongoing series artist. And if you'll recall from last time, which you may not since it's been forever, issue 670 was the prelude issue for the resurrection of Ra's al Ghul. We're going to dive ever so slightly deeper into the broader event, but our focus is, of course, on this second of 2 issues written by Morrison. So we've already given our sort of contemporaneous impressions of the event at the time. Here is the solicitation for Batman 671, the title of the issue being He Who Is Master. The solicitation was released in September of 2007. The Resurrection of Ra's al Ghul, Part 4 of 7. It's the fight of the year. Batman versus Ra's al Ghul versus the Sensei. Will anyone survive? Plus, the secrets of Nanda Parbat are revealed. End of solicitation. A very short teaser. For our recap, we're going to take a little bit of a different approach since this is a bit of an unusual cadence for Knights Never Die. So I'm going to rapid fire catch everyone up because I read this entire story today to refamiliarize myself with the entire event. I don't recommend doing that. So
I concur.
Yeah. Javi, I know, has also recently read the full story. Paul has read just this issue in isolation, is my understanding. So I think we got a good cross section of
In the
perspectives
last
here.
issue,
Okay, yeah. So the
I just
Morrison
didn't
issue.
show up.
That's
Yeah,
yeah. No,
read the Morrison issues.
look, man, not gonna blame you here at all. So I'm gonna run through things point by point to get us to 671. So if you'll recall, the end of Batman 670, the revived Ra's in his ailing body made his presence known to both Talia and Damian and made clear his intentions to sacrifice Damian's life so he could inhabit his youthful, genetically compatible body. Why genetics factor into the transfer of consciousness, I'm still not totally clear about. Then the story jumped to an issue of Robin, number 168, where Damian successfully infiltrates the Batcave in an attempt to warn Batman of the fact that Ra's has returned. Instead, he finds Robin, Tim Drake, who doesn't believe his story and has an axe to grind with him after their fight in Batman and Son. Alfred intervenes and diffuses the situation just in time for an ambush on Wayne Manor by a legion of ninjas. Batman later finds Talia. They agree to return to Gotham together to help Damian and Robin. Then in Nightwing number 138, Dick Grayson arrives to help Tim and Damian ward off the ninja army from Wayne Manor in the Batcave. As Batman and Talia race back to the city, the former, current, and future Robin do a pretty decent job, but then Dragonfly, Tiger Moth, and Silken Spider bust in and the ninjas dart them with lethal poisons. Nightwing reasons that Tim and Damian can take care of themselves more than the three crazy assassins and elects to save their lives, which gives time for the ninjas to abduct the Robins and bring them before Ra's. Then, in Detective Comics number 838 by Paul Dini and Ryan Benjamin, I believe, Ra's attempts to tempt Tim to join him by saying he has the ability to bring his loved ones back from the dead. Having recently lost his father, Spoiler, and Superboy around this time, Tim initially resists but appears tempted by the offer later. Batman and Talia make it to the demon stronghold, finding Ra's and presenting Batman with an impossible choice. Who will be sacrificed to serve as Ra's new body, Tim or Damian? And that leads us here to part 4, Batman number 671. You guys got all that? Everybody have all that? I hope so. Or maybe I don't. I don't know. This is a weird story. So that leads us here. The issue begins with the sensei already in Nanda Parbat, which we'll come back to. Things then pick back up with Batman and Ra's and the choice from the last issue's cliffhanger. But Batman offers Ra's an alternative, the Fountain of Life in Nanda Parbat, something Ra's has always wanted, and to restore his current body, which spares both boys. So, Paul, I think I'm going to throw it to you first because you've had these issues in isolation. How did this one? First of all, what did you think of the last one, and how does this one kick off for you?
Well, it's funny. I meant to actually go and read or review this, and I totally forgot what happened in it because it'd been a while, right? I don't know. You know, it's actually kind of fun to dive into stories like this when you're not following it and just kind of like peripherally sometimes like, oh yeah. I mean, the fact I'm not spending like $4 an issue on it also helps, I think, a little bit. I think back in the day, I'd be more apt. I wouldn't be, it'd have to be a really interesting story for me to like go beyond the main title. Like with Spider-Man, I was probably going to get all the stuff anyway for the most part, but for anyone else, it'd have to be a pretty damn intriguing story. Otherwise, I just, for the sake of the collection, I just keep it going. So it was kind of cool and interesting to read it like out of order as far as like the prelude and like 671. Yeah, I mean, it's fine. I mean, I don't know. It is what it is. As far as 670 goes, I remember being like, I read it. I was like, it's not inoffensive. But you're asking what I thought about 671 as well, correct?
At least at the beginning here. Does it grab you? Does this opening grab you?
It's fine. I mean, it's just funny to see like, the Robins being like beat up on, and it's like, what are you gonna do to the Robins? Oh my god! It's like, oh, Ra's, you're so crazy. The demon's head's crazy. You know, I don't know. I mean, it's fine. I mean, like, I'm just gonna say this. Well, should I say it for the overall thoughts?
Yeah.
Okay, it's fine. I'll just say it that it wasn't like drag, but it wasn't like this is exciting. It was fine. I mean, it's an adequate comic book. I mean, you know, that's all. And that's honestly a good thing in my opinion.
Cromulent, as my wife might describe it.
The hell is that?
It's a word for just like adequate or acceptable, or
sounds like a yummy treat,
or just a treat that could be yummy but is just okay. Javi, I'm going to throw it to you in a little bit of a different sense because you've gone on this full journey.
Yeah.
I'm not to speak for you, but I think it's reasonably fair to say that you and I are probably in the same camp as far as our assessments of the variable nature of the quality of each issue of this story. By the time you got to the beginning of 671 here, and Batman offering that third alternative, is this a little bit of a breath of fresh air in the story, or does it strike you maybe a little differently?
No, I think it was a breath of fresh air because Batman is back and leading the narrative and providing that thrust. So that means that Damian isn't talking that much, which is a really good thing in my opinion. Look, I love Dark Knight, excuse me, Dark Knight, Dark City by Peter Milligan from 1990. That was like just chef's kiss summer comic reading. It's so good. I loved it so much because it was weird and macabre and the fact that Morrison goes to base so much of where we're headed on that story, like someone else besides me remembered it from when I was 13. And the fact that, you know, it later unfolds in like metal and death metal, like that's awesome. That's not the Peter Milligan that we got in these issues leading up to this one in the broader sense. And I don't remember feeling this way the first time I read it, but now I've read obviously a lot more Damian since then. And the voice is just not there at all. And it's really weird to hear him referred to Bruce as father, but then calling Talia mom just doesn't feel right to me. And he's definitely
Peter Milligan,
leaning into
Andreas.
Yeah, he's definitely leaning into the petulant brat personality, which is not how he's characterized now, which I mean, I understand like we've been going on an arc with this character, but it's easy to remember why he was so despised in the original when these books came out because God, I hated him in these issues so much. But it's just a lot of the voices just don't feel right to me in this trade paperback. And I feel like with this issue, at least we get a little bit more of that true nature. Like people just sound like they should sound, at least in my perspective. I don't know if you felt the same way. Even the Dini stuff, it was really weird, man. Like none of this gelled for me at all, either leading up to this or the stuff that comes after this issue. It feels really disjointed and like I was missing an issue in the trade, but it's a trade. So like it should be there. But we take some leaps towards the conclusion. I'm like, how did we get to this point?
Yeah. And you know, we talked about some of this in the last episode of K&D where, you know, it's just this just feels like editorial wagging the dog of the entire line for a few months. And on the one hand, like and that's not always a bad thing. You know, if the line is trying to move in a particular direction, editorial input is not like some people always use that as like a pejorative, and I don't believe that's the case, and I don't believe
I
that.
mean,
Uh,
look at Denny O'Neil
yeah,
and
absolutely.
No Man's Land. That was
Mhm.
editorial. And it was
The
amazing.
difference between
You know?
that and this, at least to me, is that it feels like the creators don't have an abundance of latitude to inject these stories with personality. What by the
Yeah.
time I was making my way through this story today and I got to 671, it started to feel more like a Morrison book, like more than 670 did. Like this one actually does feel not necessarily like a component of the ongoing story that we're reading, but like a Grant Morrison Batman comic book. It's a little bit eclectic, ethereal, but with an overriding feeling of badassery on the part of the man himself, him being Batman, of course. And that I really appreciate for this issue. This might be my favorite single issue of the entire story. The exception, I think, lies in Fabian Nicieza's issues of Nightwing. I think those are fun reads, even if they don't necessarily push the story very far over the course of the entirety of the event. But it just really does feel like in most cases that there's not a lot of forward momentum. And also, too, as much as I admire the artists that are on display here, like Ryan Benjamin contributes an issue that we will cover as part of the main Morrison run right before we hit Batman RIP that I think is solid generally. And I like Freddie Williams the second. I really liked the
Mhm.
Beach and Williams Robin run. And I love Don Kramer and Leonard Kirk, or
Yeah.
Kramer in particular. He does the
Detective.
Nightwing issues, but there is something where the Batman issues on the artistic front feel like they're aiming a little bit higher. And it's not just Tony Daniels' pencils, although that is certainly part of it because his pencils are very, very clean. But even like the coloring feels like it's getting more TLC than some of the other issues in this crossover. So when we read this issue and then it's immediately followed by something that seems like it was, and granted, I don't know if this is the case necessarily, but it seems like the other issues were just kind of put together a little bit more quickly, let's say. Um, the Morrison issues just hit a little bit higher and feel like more of a main event book as opposed to some of the other issues in this crossover that feel kind of like a B tier book. Like the overall story, save for these two issues, feels like a B tier story. And I think that's where a lot of people had problems with it. In fact, I went to look back at some of the words of a friend of ours in the issue in the review that he wrote of Batman number 676, which was the first part of Batman RIP. It says, I don't mind
Oh,
an event as long as it's good, but I think a lot of us still have bad tastes in our mouths after the mess that was the resurrection of Ra's al Ghul. John Beerley had a great way with words, and he put that very effectively, I think. So yeah, this is just kind of all over the place in my
it
estimation.
doesn't have any cohesion.
No, not really. Not on the artistic
I
front. The writing of the characters is all over the place. Damien's characterization probably not nailed down yet, but Morrison certainly had more of a command. I'm sorry, Paul. Go ahead.
Which is fair. Yeah.
I think one of the biggest problems with events is not so much that I think that there's when I say events, when you're encompassing different main characters, it's a lot easier, I think, to in my opinion, just from a reader standpoint, it seems like it'd be easier to orchestrate what you want to do opposed to focused around one main character and having different cooks all interpreting one one thing, one or like one set of like characters that are all taking turns. In the Spidey offices, it felt like in the Superman offices and Batman offices in the 90s. I'm not sure what it is, but I'm not sure if it was more of like, I don't know. but it felt there was a lot more cohesion back then, and a lot more of a shared characterization of voicing, you could say, than we get. We get now in general, to be honest. And granted, we don't really have those as much because now we're getting ASM twice, and which I think is more efficient, to be honest. Something like that is a lot more efficient, et cetera, et cetera. But I will say, when you have multiple writers writing the same character on a monthly basis, it's really hard to narrow that down. And I felt like, in the 90s weren't always perfect with it, but I could see where this would be a lot more. It'd be hard because Milligan and Morrison are pretty heavy hitters. I'm not sure who was writing the other stories, but those are big writers.
That's another thing too, because by roping in the titles that were not that were in Batman's orbit but were not explicitly written by Batman.
Yeah.
In Nightwing's case, this was a transitionary period because you had Fabian Nicieza come in to do these issues of Resurrection of Ra's al Ghul. The issue immediately before Resurrection was the final issue written by Marv Wolfman. He had been writing the title since the early 120s, I think, right after 1 year later. And then right after the Resurrection of Ra's al Ghul was the beginning of Peter Tomasi's run on Nightwing with Rags Morales. And that was just like an all-star creative team. And it was a really solid run on Nightwing. And the same can be said of Robin as well, because you had Freddie Williams III provided some artistic consistency, which was good. But you had Peter Milligan jumping in, and he was not the regular writer on the series. Trying to remember who it was that was actually on. Let's see, that was Robin 167. So let me check the DC database real fast. So that was Brandon Thomas. That was a fill-in writer for Nightwing, as I think as Freddie Williams was jumping off. And then Peter Milligan did these 2 issues of Robin. And then at 170, that was the return of Chuck Dixon briefly to Robin with Freddie Williams. So that was right on the cusp of the transition from Adam Beechin back over to Chuck Dixon. And there just wasn't tonal consistency there. But you also had writers who their issues were focusing on the characters of those series. So Robin's focused on Robin, and Nightwing's focused on Nightwing. Detectives focused on Batman, and of course Batman's focused on Batman. Dini and Morrison have some relatively different philosophies, but not really in the voice of Batman himself. But it was just patched together in a rather haphazard reading experience while this was coming out. And it was a transitional point for the books as they were moving on to something else.
Yeah.
So weird story, weird crossover, weird construction. Let me move along a little bit with the plot here. So,
well, I like
Batman,
that we do get a little.
Yeah.
I was going to say really quick, like I like how we get this Morrisonian reference to Batman going through Thogul, the Buddhist ritual of purification, because that ties into 52.
Yeah.
And stuff that we're going to get to in a couple of issues as well.
That's true. And that's really like the only thing too that actually is served by prior Morrison issues and future Morrison issues. Still doesn't raise the Resurrection of Ra's al Ghul to the level of essential reading,
No.
I don't think. But a good point nonetheless. So Batman and Ra's find the Sensei's men at the gates of Nanda Parbat, and Batman saves the monks from the Sensei's mercenaries, including Merlin, the archer, the evil archer. Both men make their way to the fabled fountain where the Sensei is waiting, where Batman learns that the Sensei is actually Raish's father. We don't have, to my knowledge, we don't have a great understanding of what actually allows the Sensei to be so long-lived. At least I can remember an instance where his longevity was given any significant detail, but he's obviously older than Ra's, and Raish's age varies from between 6,000 and 7,000 years old, usually thereabouts. So Sensei is old, and Sensei has developed his martial arts skills to the point where Batman's own skill means nothing. I would actually really like to see Sensei versus Karate Kid from the Legion, because I wonder if Karate Kid might have more of a chance, because Karate Kid is a better fighter than Batman, technically, at least according to Superman's records of the Legion. But from this point, Sensei expresses his disappointment with Raish and quickly moves to stab him and kill him. And this degrading body is on its way out the door now. Fight ensues, but the Sensei's mastery easily overcomes Batman's, reasoning that he just needs to last longer instead of win. Batman maneuvers the Sensei into the fountain, where he seemingly disintegrates and apparently dies. And as Raish's current body expires, he transfers his consciousness into a nearby monk's mind and aims to escape, but Batman suspects his actions and screams in rage in the demon's head's direction. And that is part 4 of the story. Paul, overall thoughts on this issue, because it throws a lot at you, especially by dropping you in the middle of the deep end here.
Yeah, Javi, I'm assuming you have the whole issue in pictures here. Maybe you don't, but if you have an action
I
scene
don't.
by Dan, do you have an action scene by Daniels, like a full layout page or anything? Perfect. That's exactly, I think, what I was looking at. So here's the thing. I don't know Daniels. This is Tony Daniels, right?
Daniel,
Yeah.
singular.
It's whatever. Tony Daniels, C-3PO, same difference.
Paul Herman's.
So
No.
Oh.
Okay,
Javi, remind me to
keep
tell
going.
you my C-3PO story.
Oh, you're gonna cringe, man. Anyway, I'm sorry. Keep going.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah, whatever. So the thing is about, these last 2 issues, and it's funny because I was talking, Kurt Busiek posted a picture. There's a Method by Madness. Posted a picture of line art from that's untouched by inks by Gene Colan, from his Batman run, and it's just chef's kiss, right? And I was thinking about this, when I was looking at it, because Colan can do anything, right? And
Yeah.
he's got great faces, he's got great layouts. And I was telling my buddies in my comic book book club we were in, I was telling them what makes a good comic artist, and this is my own opinion, are artists who either have great layouts or they are, if you can be average at one of these 2 things. You can be average at layouts, or you have to be really good at making emotional, really good faces. Faces are so critical to me in comic books and be able to evoke emotion. Again, depending on the kind of genre, right? But for the most part, you need to, if you're doing comic cartooning, you need to evoke emotion. I think Daniels is solid at faces. I don't think he's bad. He's solid. But if you throw up that action scene again, for me, the one thing that I'm going to say right now, for Daniel, that I'm really impressed at is, and I'm somewhat familiar with him, is his layouts are really good. He's a great storyteller. I know he's a writer too, and that it shows. And that's the one thing that I'm going to say right now that I have been beyond impressed of, is the fact that he's so efficient telling a story, and I'm as entertained on both issues because of his layouts. They're just so good and so vibrant that I stayed in tune with the story, even though I could give an F about the story. And that to me is a mark of a good artist and a master artist, as far as a cartoonist / comic writer. So, Morrison's a good writer. These are not bad issues, but to me, the art really stood out to me, being like, this guy is an efficient, really good artist. And I just came away really impressed with the layouts. The layouts were really good. And the action, and that to me, I think the action scene between Sensei and Batman was way better than I was anticipating. Great moment. Again, this is good stuff, man. I know Daniels is a good artist, but I'm very unfamiliar with him. I walked away from this issue being like, I can't wait to see more, because I know him and Morrison work a lot together on this upcoming run.
Did you
So, yeah.
Did you read Detective when it was the New 52?
New 52? No, and I got the first couple issues. I stopped.
Because he wrote and drew, he launched the New 52 Detective.
I vaguely remember that.
Yeah. And then he's come back, post Rebirth and done a few arcs of Tom King's Batman. He fills in every now and then. So, but this was my first exposure to him.
Yeah. So I think this is, I think the art really helped, honestly, like get me through and kept me interested. So that last splash page, Javi of Batman, is that's an impressive splash right there, in my opinion.
Yeah, well, this is from the trade.
Yeah.
So it doesn't have the continued next issue at the bottom, which kind of threw me for a loop, expecting there to be another page or two of the story. Then, like, nope, it's the cover for the next one. Sorry, Chris.
No. We talked a little bit briefly about in the last episode about my first exposure to Tony Daniel, which was in Jeff Johns' Teen Titans run, including that issue where Jason Todd breaks into Titans Tower, which is a very solid issue. You read that issue.
Yeah, it's good. No, it's good. Yeah. I mean, you gave me we'll eventually get there at some point, but that Teen Titans run, I'm keen on, because I'm a huge Johns fan, and I'm now that I know that Daniel did it with them, I'm like, I'm really interested now. So yeah,
it was a little bit later, but yeah, I mean, is really, I mean, the run generally is really solid. It starts with Mike McCone, and it doesn't really let up on the artistic front. Yeah. Well, Javi, on the other side of part 4, let's say on the other side of part 4 immediately, but also then on the other side of the full crossover, what sticks out to you about the quality level of this issue specifically?
Of 671's quality? Well, I feel like, I mean, obviously it's weird because we don't, like, Batman is the main title. I mean, as much as the fact that Detective came first and Batman debuted in Detective, just like Superman debuted in Action, somewhere along the way, like, the title Superman and the title Batman became the main books. And it's really odd that this isn't a Batman, the story driven storyline, like, I expected there to be another chapter ending in Batman, and instead it goes off into Robin and to Nightwing, and then Detective, I think, is the final part that was collected in the trade. And it just, it's so weird. And like I said earlier, like, it just felt like I was missing an issue somewhere, either in the middle of, or at the very end. And like, if you're here for the Batman of it all, like, this is pretty much where it stops, is in 671, because obviously, like you mentioned before, Robin focuses on Robin, Nightwing takes his perspective, and the Detective is kind of just wrapping up all the loose ends. So this is really, like, Batman really disappears after this issue. So if that's who you're looking for, you're going to be kind of disappointed. And it was hard to put myself in the headspace when I was reading some of this last night, because I was trying to remember where Tim was, because it started to feel like he was out of character, even considering Raish's offer. Mm-hmm. And, it took, I think, the Nightwing issue to remind me, okay, it wasn't just his dad in Identity Crisis, but it was Connor in Infinite Crisis. It was Spoiler allegedly in War Games. And just the fact that he's been dealing Yeah, dealing with a lot of stuff. And then, the Damien of it all, of the constant goading of you're a hanger on, and, my father doesn't like you and this is all mine because I'm the true heir. Um, so it took a bit for me to finally find my footing and get into the Tim Drake aspect, and maybe reconsider that it wasn't out of character given more of the context. But it's a context that doesn't come until the next to the last issue, which, by that point I'm like, none of this is feeling right to me.
Yeah.
So maybe I would change a little bit more reading into it, but reading it a third time, but I really don't have the time or energy to read it a third time. Not when we're getting so close to RIP. So I feel like this issue 671 is kind of the highlight for me of the arc, but it's not a full meal at all. It's serving driving the narrative forward.
Yeah.
So
It's certainly that's a good way of putting it, because it's certainly not a full meal, especially even in relation to other single Morrison issues that feel, even those that are part of other stories, they
yeah,
feel more complete than this one does. And that's not Morrison's fault, that's just the nature of this kind of story, and the fact that they roped in all the titles at the same time.
and
And in it,
I
yeah.
I don't say I'd like to know what the thought process was, because I don't remember how long ago it was that Raish died, but like,
Death of the
why did
Maidens
we
was
have
like
to?
2004. It wasn't too long before this.
Yeah. So what was like, we've got to bring Raish back at this point, because it wasn't like they had to tie in with Batman Begins. So, like, why are we forcing it a crossover right now when Morrison's really starting to cook? Um, was this a summer blockbuster thing that they just wanted to boost sales across the line? Or I'd be curious to hear of why this story and why now, and why
Yeah,
not give Raish more time off the board than the 3 years, and to bring him back the way that they did, which it kind of feels like they
especially
kind of forget about it.
yeah, especially considering that, what did they do with him for the next 4 years until the end of the post-crisis DCU? Not much.
Till the
Uh
end of Incorporated even.
Yeah, I mean, Incorporated, he pretty much was a non-entity. Spoiler alert, I guess. But that's hard to ignore. Well, just for the purposes of keeping the audience with us, and so we can finally put
Yeah.
the resurrection of Ra's al Ghul behind us. Here is my quick and dirty synopsis of every remaining issue of this story. All right. So, part 5, in Robin number 169, Tim is actually tempted by Raish's offer after speaking with Talia about its plausibility, and as he moves toward a Lazarus pit for his first step into darkness, Nightwing appears, ready to beat some sense into him. That's basically all that happens in Robin 169. Then, in the next part, Nightwing number 139, part 6, Dick and Tim debate the ethics of cheating death and restoring life to wronged loved ones. Fight. Tim relents, realizing he was about to make a horrible mistake. After linking up with Talia and being saved by Alfred, the whole group journeys to Nanda Parbat by plane just in time to see a stronger Raish with Damien in his clutches, ready to take his body. Then, in what is apparently the finale of the story, but we'll get to that in a second, Detective 839, Part 7, Batman stops him pretty much right at the beginning. The whole crew of protagonists fight off Raish's army as White Ghost, character we haven't really talked about yet, takes Raish away, pledging his own body to restore his father. White Ghost is actually Dusan, long lost son of Raish. Raish is restored, and Dusan's mind dies. Batman and Raish clash, but are stopped by the monks of Narnda Parbat, who banish them all, and the land begins to crumble for some reason. They all escape as the Bat family members spend time together in their jet, flying away from Nanda Parbat just in time for Christmas for some reason. And that's part 7. Not collected in the collected edition of the Resurrection of Ra's al Ghul is what is actually a characteristically good Paul Dini issue of Detective Comics that actually marks the beginning of Dustin Nguyen's time on the title with Paul Dini, and it serves as an epilogue to the events of the Resurrection of Ra's al Ghul, an actually solid issue that they don't include in the official collections with the main story, despite the fact that it would enhance the entire collection. But
Okay, I
what
thought I was
happens
missing
is
something.
DC was too. But Ra's makes it back to Gotham, but he is found by Batman, who then overcomes him and drugs him with sedatives, blitzes him out of his skull, locks him away in Arkham Asylum under a false name, and basically just leaves him there in total obscurity to become a non-entity for the next several years. But the actual like tete-a-tete between Batman and Ra's when Batman is actually setting this up is very good. And Dustin Nguyen is like giving a solid debut to Batman fans as the ongoing artist of Detective Comics for the next 10, 11 issues, I think. So that's the Resurrection of Ra's al Ghul in a nutshell. I think it's pretty fair to say Batman fans were ready to be done with it while it was going on. It was just all over the place, as I think we've discussed.
And like the
Before I jump
sitcom
into-
ending at the bottom.
Yeah, that is from Detective 839. That is from part 7.
That's
And
the
then
exact, yeah.
they throw in, like, it's not mentioned here, but they throw in, "Sir, it's Christmas. I knew you forgot." And it's like the Batman 670 came out like right around Halloween, which seemed to make a little more sense for like a Batman crossover event to start, but then to just like roll it into a nice Christmas story where they're all bashing mugs in Bruce's jet. I don't know. It felt very hammy to me.
It's
And I have pretty high
literally
tolerance for ham.
it's literally the end of a sitcom episode where they freeze frame it and roll the credits.
Yeah. Yeah. True enough. Well, let's round this out, shall we, with the critical reception of the time.
Yeah.
Unless Paul has any final thoughts that he'd like to share on the story as a whole, or he's gone. I'm not sure. Going once, going twice, sold. Okay, so critical reception of the time. At Comic Book Revolution, a review site we quote a lot on this show because they're so extensive, Rock gave this issue higher marks while still generally panning the progression of the full event. He says, Morrison smartly kicked this story arc up a few notches with this issue. The past 2 installments have floundered about a bit. Not anymore. Morrison quickly picks the pacing back up by giving us plenty of plot progression in Batman number 671. This story arc certainly gets new life breathed into it as we finally got the Sensei, Ra's, and Batman to Nanda Parbat, and also finally got to see the big showdown between the 3 men. The nice amount of plot progression that we got in this issue reignited my flagging interest in this story arc. Agreed on all counts. This is definitely a highlight of the story, and the pacing is very good. And it is a triple threat match to the fullest degree with these 3 people, even though Ra's is not really fighting both of them per se, but it was kind of, maybe it's more of a handicap match. But Sensei still outmatches both of them very easily, but still very solid. IGN's review by Daniel Crown, not a name I'm familiar with, was lukewarm but generally positive. He rated this issue a 7.4 or great, or maybe that's good. I think it was maybe good. And he said, while the resurrection of Ra's al Ghul is beginning to feel slightly oversaturated with action and light on story for my particular taste, I still can't help but be drawn in by Morrison's quirky take on Batman the Family Man. Interesting thought. This is by definition a Batman family story, but I don't know if outside of the very, like sitcom-y end of it, I don't know if I necessarily get like a family kind of vibe out of it personally, but more power to you.
Well,
And then
they're
the
very
BOF
disjointed.
review. What's that?
I say they're very disjointed. Like they don't
Yes.
really interact outside of Batman yelling at Dick to you go do this, Tim, you go do that. Like they don't really have any scenes until the very end when they're clinking mugs.
Yeah. True. Yeah. It's kind of weird to think about if you go on the journey of this story and are expecting a lot of tete-a-tete between members of the Bat family. You'll get it between Nightwing and Robin, but not so much with Batman involved. Yeah. Does this account for Dick's first meeting Damian? I think it does.
It
At
might be,
least
yeah, I think
explicitly.
so.
Yeah. He seems unfamiliar with him when they first spend time together in one of the early issues. But anyway, beside the point. The BOF review by one Bill Jet Ramey. There is none. Bill didn't review this, and he said the following month that he pretty much skipped that whole The Resurrection of Ra's al Ghul crossover because he absolutely despises multi-title and multi-issue crossovers. He said, it was this sort of crap that drove me away from comics back in the late 90s. I much prefer it when there's no crossing over between titles and writers and artists stay within continuity but are pretty much left alone to do their own thing with Batman.
That's kind of how he prefers his movies too.
Yeah, true enough. I mean, you can't really say that Bill is missing out on a lot by choosing not to go on this journey. So
No.
more power to him. The rest of us were mired in this as it was coming out, but not him. But yeah, that is Batman number 671. And that is this episode of Nights Never Die. Oh, Eric, yeah, as we said at the top of the show, especially by the time we get to the other side of Batman RIP, there are going to be opportunities to discuss the climate of the Batman titles coming out of RIP and headed into Final Crisis and even coming a little bit out of Final Crisis. It was a very interesting time for the DCU. And Final Crisis was one of those rare circumstances where this very imaginative kind of storytelling pushed the entire line. And I'm intrigued to see how we all decide to go through with it. And I'm just learning that Paul is unfortunately having some technical difficulties, which is why he wasn't able to join us for the latter part of the conversation. Sorry about that, man. We got more to talk about in the next one anyway. So sorry it didn't work out, but of course we're going to look forward to having you back when the time comes. But that is Batman number 671. Javi, final thoughts on the resurrection of Ra's al Ghul in this particular issue?
Man, I'm glad we're done with this.
Yeah.
And let me be clear, like I don't hate this book. I don't loathe it, but it's not something I really want to revisit anytime soon. And
not a highlight.
It was not a highlight. If you were to ask me what I would rather revisit more or first, I might go with The Clown Who Laughs at Midnight. Because at least that feels, of a piece. Like the voices match. There's something interesting going on. And this is just, I don't know. It's death by committee or something. And again, that just makes it sound like way more negative than how I really feel about it. But it's not necessary really to the overarching story that we're going along with, and the voices don't ring. Like this doesn't even sound like the Talia from Batman and Son. And I guess I can give Damian a pass slightly because he does have a character arc and he's still being established by Morrison at this point. But I did not like his characterization in this storyline at all. And it's really easy to see why so many people hated him, back in the day, because it was rough, especially, coming off of Tim and how antagonistic the two are towards each other. So,
Yep. Well said.
Onwards and upwards, man.
Oh,
Next time,
totally.
space medicine.
Yeah, that's going to be fun. Paul, welcome back, my friend.
Yeah, something came up or down, if you know what I mean. So,
Gotcha.
whew. Sorry. I was not. Yeah, I apologize. I did not mean to be gone that long.
No. No need.
So yeah, I'm looking forward to continuing Grant Morrison's run here. Like I've been enjoying it. It's really cool to invest in like a piece of Batman history, the good and the bad. So it's yeah. I'm not clamoring to read this myself, so we'll see what happens.
I would love nothing more, Eric, than to keep doing Superman episodes at least one a month. Paul.
Yeah. Hey, it's we'll see. We'll see what happens.
The people have spoken, Paul Hermans. The people
That's one person. Eric, I respect you, but you're one person.
It's his birthday, so he counts for one person.
Yeah, don't minimize.
He counts
Eric's
as two
voice
on his
for us.
birthday.
Yeah, come on.
No, I'm just listen. Superman show will continue at some point. It's just some people need a little bit of break. It's just we'll see.
Some
people.
Some people, right?
I think he's a little sad about box office. Just maybe.
Why is everyone so sad about
it?
Yeah, I'm this really small little rant. I'm done with box office analyzing because I think it is
Sorry.
so. Well, it's just the thing about it is the fact that like right now we see like these movies are beyond the box office, even more so now than I think back in the day. And I think that we just need to realize that we can analyze what's good and what's bad of like a box office. Obviously there's clear successes, but just because they're not making, $700 million, $800 million or whatever, it doesn't mean that it's a failure or a giant success, because, these streaming services and they need people reasons to watch and keep it in, and that's the thing. So how much those go into, I think of movies like Into the Spider-Verse. That movie was not a box office success. It was a critical success. It was a movie that wasn't like a bomb, but it wasn't great either. Or maybe it was a borderline bomb. I don't know. It did not do great, but it didn't. I don't think it did poorly. Didn't do poorly, but didn't do great. And found life on Netflix, and the rest is history.
What is this movie binge?
Huh? I'm just saying. Just stop with the stuff.
Throwing that back at you. Doing it.
I love Superman, but I love FF more. I think FF was incredible. Anyway, I digress. Chris, take us out.
I know what I'm watching on Friday. So,
well, are you going to do it? You're going to spend the $30?
Yeah, I'm gonna. They got me.
Oh, of course he would
do it. Yeah.
Well, they have that special feature, and I'm like, I could just watch this.
Yeah, I want to watch
on loop for the next. Yeah.
For the next month until I get.
That's the thing. It's like I have the Steelbook pre-ordered, but like that's a month and a half away from now.
Exactly.
And I haven't seen the movie in 2 weeks, and I'm starting to get a little itchy.
Yep.
Same. To answer Eric's question, I was intending to get it done, a new episode recorded today, but I had to do a Batman Begins chapter by chapter with Ryan Lauer, which will be hitting Batman on Film soon. And I was doing all the prep for this show and had to do prep for my 007 show that's coming up. And so hopefully over the weekend, I'll get something done because I've got notes done. I just need to sit in front of a camera and say the words and then edit said words with pretty pictures and stuff. So hopefully not only just an up to speed with Wally West, but an up to speed with absolute Wally West, because I'm like 3 issues behind on that too. So hopefully this month we'll see a couple of episodes.
Cool. Well, be sure to
Yeah.
check that out if you have not already. And we've already talked about it briefly here, but next time on Nights Never Die, we dive right back into the full Grant Morrison narrative for Space Medicine, Batman number 672, which is going to be quite a lot of fun. But we are going to call it there. Thank you for joining us on this latest episode of Nights Never Die. And please remember, Batman and Robin will never die. See you next time.